Welcome to Year 1 Diesel. My name is Matt. Well, lockdown still has the Jeep stuck in the garage, so I thought we'd try something a little bit different this time. Today's video won't be about Jeeps or diesels. Instead, I thought I'd give you a tour of my workshop in the basement and dust off one of my old projects from the archives. I've had a lot of great mentors in my life, and one of the reasons that I started this channel was to do a better job sharing and explaining the things that I make, do, and enjoy. This is my basement workshop. It's about 250 square feet of well-lit space in the walkout portion of my basement. Mostly I do clean work here, although I have built 2 different car bodies in this space. Right now my saw table is mostly just a workbench since I'm not doing a lot of woodworking at the moment. And the CNC router gets used fairly frequently. It seems like I'm always doing little projects around the house that are just done easier and faster with the CNC router. For today, I'll jump back in time 14 years to the start of my most ambitious project. It was 2006 and I was looking for a small car that wouldn't take up too much space. My wife was expecting her first child and I was looking for something to tinker with. We were living in upstate New York at the time and a friend connected me with a guy with an unusually tiny car sitting in his backyard. It was just a shell, but it was cheap and it could be carried out by 2 guys. To give you an idea about how small this car was, we brought it back to my house in the back of a full-size van with the doors closed. For the next year, this car literally hung from the ceiling while I tried to figure out what to do with it. It was a 1958 Berkeley SC492, an exceptionally small British car from a short-lived company that made camper trailers. Extremely lightweight with monocoque construction using primarily fiberglass and stamped aluminum, it was originally front-wheel drive with a 3-cylinder, 2-stroke motorcycle engine. Because it was missing so many parts and would never be a complete original, I decided to build it in the style of a miniature Le Mans racer. I always liked the look of the 50s GP cars, and Berkeley's had a strong motorsports connection. Sterling Moss drove one in the fall of '56 at Goodwood, and Lorenzo Bandini won his class in the 12-hour race at Monza in '58. In my car, all the major drivetrain and suspension components were missing, so early on I knew I needed to do a powertrain swap. By mid-2007, I had settled on a donor engine and chassis, and found a turnkey dwarf race car with a Prep GSXR 1100 engine and rear-wheel drive. Over the next year, I made decent progress merging the two, and by early 2009, I had something mechanically drivable but still pretty rough-looking. Unfortunately, 2009 was a rough year. The company I was working for at the time went bankrupt, and with uncertainty looming, I reluctantly accepted a new job in Germany. We sold everything and started over. The Berkeley ended up unceremoniously shoved away in my parents' barn. Eventually, things started turning around in the U.S., and we moved back in late 2013. Once we got settled, I pulled the Berkeley out of the barn and got to work again. It had been 5 years, and my wife is now expecting our second child. The Berkeley project didn't make much sense anymore, but I was determined to finish it anyway. I pulled the body into the basement and built bucks to make aluminum door skins. As needed, I would drag pieces of the body outside to sand. By mid-2015, the bodywork was done, and I carted the pieces off to a friend for paint. Then I finally reassembled everything. When the weather got nice again in the spring of 2016, I made a couple of test drives to get it tuned, and then I sold the car. Of all the cars I ever owned, I think I had the Berkeley the longest and drove it the fewest miles. In 10 years, it probably moved less than 10 miles under its own power. I had created a real-world Hot Wheels car. An undrivable monster with no practical purpose, no passenger space, no cargo space, no reverse, and maybe a 100-mile range. Yet it was undeniably cool. It was a fun project and I learned a ton, but I also learned that I probably wouldn't do it again. Of the 600 or so SE 492s produced, this one is probably still the most extreme and by far sounds the best.